So welcome to the people that are joining either by watching the video or the webinar now or via the podcast that will be released a little later. My name is Julie Ryan and I am the Managing Director at Custom D. And Custom D, we create custom web and mobile applications. Joining me today, I have Sam Johnson of the Student Volunteer Army. This is our fifth Custom D startup in the startup series. I'm also joined today by Craig Saunders. We were supposed to have Matthew, but he's a little out of action. So Craig is the director of Custom D and is helpfully standing in his place. So if you haven't listened or watched our startup series before, it is really looking at startups and going into the ups and downs of starting a new venture. But through the course of these, I've also come to understand that it's almost as much an opportunity to delve into the minds of these free-thinking entrepreneurs. So if you're from New Zealand, then Sam won't actually require much introduction. Sam and his volunteer army were the face of hope for many of us in the wake of the Christchurch earthquakes. They showed us how to support and help those in the community around us. For someone so young, and you are so youthful, already, Sam, you've been the recipient of a stack of accolades, which include the Sir Peter Blake Special Leadership Award, Young New Zealander of the Year, and Communicator of the Year, to name a few. I'm sure there are many more. Over the past few months, it's been an absolute thrill to get to know you. Cindy, our office manager, also gets a little she gets a little blushy when you come in. It's a little starstruck. But you just have this amazing warmth and positive energy that's just so compelling. And I mean, I guess that's how you managed to lead half of the University of Canterbury off to do such great things after the earthquakes. You know, a little like the Pied Piper, although you know the students aren't really rats, and you didn't see them. But,
I tried not to drown them.
That aside.
Somebody just called, Julie, I don't interrupt your lovely introduction, but somebody just called me the Pied Piper the other day, and I had to look up the story, and the Pied Piper drowned the rats, and then they drowned the children. So, no, I didn't. Hopefully, that's what I try not to do.
There's different variations on that story. Nowadays, the story is more like the rats got taken off into a magical land in the mountain somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Right, okay. That's right. That's what we did. We did magical mountains of silt.
So anyway, so thank you so much for choosing Custom D as your development partner. You know, we're really privileged to have you and the Student Volunteer Army on board. But can you tell us a little bit about, you know, how you came to be the person that you are? Where's your life been so far?
Big question, but kia ora koutou katoa. A real privilege to, Craig and Julie, to work with you and to work on this cool project together. And I don't think you knew quite what you were getting into, getting me and my rabble as a client. But we have a lot of fun. And 10 years on from starting a Facebook page after the Christchurch earthquakes, when I was a university student, the charity Student Volunteer Army is still going. And so, you know, to your question, how did it start? It was as simple as wanting to help and kind of being.
How about you? Like, tell us about your background. Like, where did you come from? Like...
Okay. So sorry. I'm from a farm in mid Canterbury and grew up there. Went to school in Christchurch. Did a year, lucky living in Wales after I left school, and basically was a teacher for a year because I arrived in Wales and I can't do sport. I'm not very good at sport, so I couldn't go to any of the gap years where you had to teach rugby or cricket because I literally didn't know how. So I had to find one that taught that I could do drama, music, and English. And so I went to the school and looked after these little kids. And then when I arrived, the drama teacher had just had a hip operation, and they saw I could basically teach the class. So I basically taught the class as a 17-year-old. And that kind of changed my life quite substantially, because suddenly I went from being a student to being in charge of 4 different classes, some of which the students were older than me. And I very nearly stayed in Wales and didn't come back actually, 'cause it was such a great time. And that was kind of a formative experience that led on to university. And
yeah, well, suddenly you've gone from having no responsibility to having all of the responsibility.
yeah. It's an interesting responsibility. It's sort of when it comes and goes in your life. Do with it.
So after Wales, because you've done a really interesting internship in New York, didn't you? Is that right?
I did. I did this internship with this company called Veracity Worldwide, which was a corporate intelligence agency, and that was this was after the earthquakes. But I met this guy at the World Economic Forum, and he was this guy kind of standing at the back corner of the room, and I kind of was like, oh, well, I always like when you enter a room to go and talk to the person who's standing by themselves or standing back, because you can see everyone in the room. And chances are they'll know something about what's going on. And it turns out he was an ex-diplomat and runs this intelligence agency. And I befriended him and then hit him up for an internship a couple of years later in a consultancy project, and went and lived in New York and worked with him, and just to expose myself to a whole lot of different things. But it's always been a good lesson in life, actually, in networking around the people in the corner of the room, talking to them and figuring out what they know. And
that's the first tip for the day, then.
Well, it has to be about tips. So I'm a bit nervous because it's a startup series, so I've got to make sure I come up with something useful for these.
Yeah, well, that's gold right there.
Yeah.
People in the corner of the room.
It's very I remember I've been to a couple of talks, and women and men alike both say, you don't know if you don't ask, if you don't go and talk to people, if you don't make that effort, and it is very difficult for a lot of people to put themselves out there. It's it is a real skill, and probably something that comes with practice as well.
It comes with practice, but I was thinking this morning, I was having a funding meeting this morning for SVA, and we still have to ask for money all the time. And so in terms of startups, I don't think it ever gets easier, but you do get better at it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I sat on that panel on the New Zealand High Tech, when we were having our grilling, and I would have given that award to you right then and there.
Well,
good stuff.
The power of the cell.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the thing. So Student Volunteer Army has been a passion for a really long time of mine. Yeah. And partly people volunteer for two different reasons. One, because they're altruistic and want to give back, and one, because there's their self-interest in it. And I think my continued engagement is because of a mix of both. Like, I have a self-interest. It's been a really interesting career for me, and I get to give back in a sense and create things that other people can benefit from, which I personally value and like doing. But I think that what the big driver at the moment is and using those two things together, and probably a little bit of guilt too. Like, I got super famous out of the earthquakes for a start for being the poster kid who just started the thing, but it was a radical collaboration. There were 70 of us who led Student Volunteer Army after the February earthquake, particularly, with 11,000 volunteers, and it was probably more Pied Piper than I was in charge. No one really was in charge. I sort of gave the permission, and that's what Student Volunteer Army is. It's giving permission for people to do what they actually feel is the right thing to do.
Right.
And weirdly, in our country, in today's society, a lot of people don't have a sense of agency or permission. They're not sure if they're allowed to help someone else, and that's what we want.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I mean, a mix of reasons. I think it's we've gone more corporatized, more centralized rather than localized in terms of our structures of communities. I think Plunkett's a great example of this. Plunkett it was started by mums, it was run in communities, and now over the years it's become corporatized, as it had to survive. But the counterfactual of that, and the sort of the other side of it is, well, what does the volunteer do now for such a good organization? And a quick history of volunteering is after the Second World War, Lions and JCs and Rotary Probus, all those things largely came out of Chicago, and they were the second wave after church hits, and then moved around the world, and that's how they spread, and that's particularly formed our service culture in New Zealand. As we know, a lot of those groups are aging, and so what we're trying to do is bring in a younger model and operate the model quite differently.
Yeah, well, a lot of those more traditional volunteering organisations, the attrition is horrendously large, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and I don't want to give them a bad rap either, because I mean they do such a good job.
Yeah.
But it is hard. Volunteer motivation is hard, and we can't. The Student Volunteer Army couldn't do half the things that Red Cross or the Sallies or things people do, simply because our volunteers aren't interested in that work necessarily either. So we have to really focus on people's motivation and what are they motivated to do something about, and how can we motivate them to care?
Give them a cause.
Give them a cause, yeah. Give them something to care about. Well, actually, people do care, but it just don't sort of have the outlet sometimes. So we're trying to make it easier to volunteer, which is a key purpose of Student Volunteer Army. Right back to the earthquakes, actually, it was all about making it easy to pick up a shovel, go and shovel someone's silt for the day, meet someone else, get home safely, and hopefully come back the next day.
So just let's wind back a little bit and talk about, like, how did it start? Like, where did the idea come from to start Student Volunteer Army?
I got invited to 4 earthquake after parties on Facebook, and I thought, well, this is the one time that we shouldn't be having earthquake after parties as students, and we should probably be useful. And for those of you who were around Christchurch at the time, I mean, students had a really bad reputation. There was, I always remember the rubbish bins on the road between the university and the Bush Bar, and rubbish bin collection day was on Thursday morning, and pub night was on Wednesday night. And then what happened every Wednesday night was some clever sod pushed over all the rubbish bins. So actually how Student Volunteer Army happened was I was so pissed off about that. A few of us were actually. And because the answer to that is to move the rubbish collection day, right? That is the thing you can move. You can't move student drinking day. So,
Why can't you move student drinking day?
that was just, we were just like, no, students drink on a Wednesday. That's when they're going. And it has changed now. They don't do that as much. But that was the case when I was in first and second year. So we ended up engaging with the council a little bit, and I ended up running for community board for the Christchurch City Council. As a result of that, we're still around the start of the earthquake time, and that was what I was actually trying to achieve.
Yes.
I was the treasurer of the musical theatre society at uni. We wanted that to be the biggest club on campus.
Right.
We were dreaming, and thankfully Student Volunteer Army actually is now the biggest club, and it overtook NSOC and UCOM. So it's kind of, that's how it actually began, and it was just a Facebook group that went a bit crazy. I didn't come up with the name myself. I called it the UC Student Base for Earthquake Cleanup, which I thought was a great.
Not quite as catchy.
No, like awful, but that's why you have a good team, because everyone came about and helped. I think it was either Colin McNabb or Jade Rutherford who came up with the name, we had that all ready to start a volunteering club by the time the second earthquake came along, and then it happened. And we just posted the group everywhere, and it went from having 3,000 people to 30,000.
Wow. What did you think when that happened? Like when it exploded like that? Like what were we just like, jumping around?
No, like it was a bit of a chaotic time. We've just done a big research report on it, and it had a couple of researchers who got a Marsden Fellowship looking at how it all worked, and it was all pretty organic and wasn't anything rocket science really. I'm from the farming community. Someone brings the lunch, somebody brings this part of it, somebody organises the transport. Everyone helps out where they can. I mean, that's what it is, and that's what we try and keep Student Volunteer Army to be. It's about doing simple things together.
Yes.
Let's not overcook the goose.
Yeah. Okay, so we know how it started, what problem you're solving. It's obvious what the problem was. Craig, you got questions?
Well, okay, so I'm following the story. It's good. How are you funded nowadays? So, I mean, obviously people were working for free then, but I guess it takes some money to run the show now.
Volunteers still work for free. That's the purpose of volunteering.
Yeah.
But we are, we're an organisation now. We have 5 employed staff, and a couple of agencies, Custom D being one, who help us, and our teacher engagement partner. And so we've grown it to a charity focused on volunteering. We are funded through a hero partnership model, so different hero partners sponsor us, City Care Group being one, New World being one, and some others from this call. Can see a couple of friends who've joined who might want to help get their companies involved. Jono and James particularly. Anyone else, welcome. We basically accept donations. And like every charity in New Zealand, you have to we write grants, we get grants, and we say what we do what we say we're gonna do.
Yeah.
Right.
Of the future of it in terms of commercialization is very much around the app and university market. So if you look at universities, polytechs and English language schools in New Zealand, and if you then look at the same in Australia, that basically students are the same everywhere. They're at a stage in life where they're trying to gain skills and experience, and volunteering is a clear way to do that. So we're looking to commercialize the app to sell it to universities, polytechs and English language.
You've got sorry, you go, Greg.
Is this model unique? Are there others in these other countries doing similar?
I think it is the easiest comparison to do. It's a youngish person's Rotary with a centralized technology system now. I think that's kind of how it works. And our focus in terms of the outcome it produces is about students gaining experience using volunteering as a tool. So it's a pathway to employment-based program. There's a lot of people that do that in a lot of different ways. This is just one model of doing that.
I get the sense the commitment from students is more fluid than joining Rotary or something that it's more accessible.
We have to market it to students all the time. So every project that comes up has to be marketed. It's got to be interesting. I really want to do, and that no one's in the team is quite excited as I am about it, but I want to do SVA dating soon, like bespoke dating events. And it's a tree planting event, but only for people who are single, or only, whatever. I think we've got to keep doing interesting things that attract people to try volunteering, because I'm most interested in those who would never volunteer, and how do we get them to have a good experience once, and they'll probably carry on doing it for the rest of their life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, if you have to evolve your thinking all the time, don't you? As each generation comes through, like what is attractive to one won't be attractive to the next or the previous.
Yeah, and I think it's been funny this year and last year with that particularly. I mean, particularly now post-COVID and having a secondary school program in 230 schools around the country. A lot of the students at year 9 who are signing up were 3 or 4 when the earthquakes happened. So there's no recollection, there's no memory of what happened after Christchurch earthquake. So we're very much another charity and we don't have the profile that it perhaps used to have, even though the scale and the sophistication is much greater. So all those things are quite interesting. And you're right, Julie. You have to keep reinventing. We have to keep coming up with new project ideas. We're trying to do a playground project at the moment with local councils, because we've got the tools and tech now. And we found out a lot of playgrounds go to landfill when they're replaced. So let's take them and rebuild them somewhere else. So we're starting to look at new things and new types of projects.
So I mean, the applying for grants and constantly sort of being on the edge of things, keeping your financial resources in play, like that must be a bit wearing. Like, do you sometimes feel like, oh, another grant application? Do you keep yourself motivated by the greater good, the greater purpose?
I have to motivate myself like all of us do, good exercise, eat well, don't drink too much, all these things just to get through the days. And I don't think there's any magic bullet for it. I mean, it is hard. We are selling stuff. Most of our products are free. I wish 10 years ago we'd come up with a better commercial model around what we're doing. I wish we'd got better advice on that. And we're starting to get some good advice now, working with clever people like yourselves who are helping us kind of mature as an organization. And my chairman, he says to me at the moment, yeah, it's great, Sam, what you've done, what the team's done in the last 10 years, but we now need to go from good to great. So that's the kind of trajectory we're on. We're trying to build a much more solid foundation so that it's not so stressful having to rely on the grants and things, because you never know. But it is a significant portion of the population who work for nonprofits and do rely on grants. And we are lucky we do have a significant brand and people do like support working with us. But it is tiring. It's definitely, and getting no's is it is a pain, and we do get them.
Yeah. That when you feel like you're doing so much good, that must be really frustrating for other people not to recognize that.
Yeah, I mean, the non-profit world is moving to be much more, and philanthropy, much more evidence-based, much more data-driven. So something we're going to be doing this year is comparing our database of volunteers to the national, the IDI, the Integrated Data Framework from government, hopefully comparing the two groups of students. And that's what we're really wanting to demonstrate much more clearly, that if you volunteer, you do actually have a higher sense of confidence, self-esteem. Young people are less likely to engage in risk-taking activities, etc. So there's a lot of research overseas around that, and we're just trying to bring it here. And then all of that will help actually build our business case to be funded more sustainably and to grow. So.
What about outcomes in terms of the services you deliver? Is that evidence-based or tracked as well?
Yeah, we actually just got a grant yesterday for doing this piece of work on the impact that we're having, and I guess it's been pretty ad hoc for a start, and now we're just trying to
quantify it
and increase the sophistication of it, I guess, and that's a big part.
It's got to help funding too. If you can say, we're achieving this value.
Yeah, that's right.
Of good.
Yeah.
So how do you manage the expectations of all these different stakeholders? You've got, the students, the people that you're helping, and obviously your team of staff there, and a board, and the funders.
I don't know. I mean, I'm a big believer in really clear, really simple strategy, execute to that, and control the thinking, including controlling your own thinking on completely random things. My team, Penny, my operations manager, she's pretty good at saying to me, "Yeah, that's really nice, Sam, but we are not doing that now."
Brilliant! Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm a hugely creative person, and I would go out and sell. I'm really good at. I'll go out and sell something that I have no idea if we can make or build or do. But I mean that's how we got into this our program at the moment. We actually said this theoretically should work, so let's go and do it, and then let's build a really basic version of it, which is what we did, and that worked. And then that's how we've ended up working with Custom D, because we validated something for 2 years using a SaaS product from the States as our whole sort of database backend. And now we've gone, okay, that was good for a start, and now we're looking at making it more sophisticated. So, yeah, I think stakeholders are interesting. There's always people.
I can see that would be really challenging, but I think you're right. Keeping focus and knowing what to do and what not to do, which paths not to go down, is critical in any startup that's growing. And we've certainly seen startups that have suddenly got ideas of, especially we see it, especially because they come and start talking to us and then get super creative with what they could do with their software. And before we know it, they're asking for something that just it's going to take forever to build. And
Well, if I think back to, so I had a little startup company in between working at SVA. So I haven't worked at SVA my whole last 10 years. I've only worked there the last 2 years. And the commitment went back to it, left the company I was working for to go back and build up SVA. So previous to that, I was working largely in a healthcare tech company. That company acquired our Tyler, my husband, and I's just startup social enterprise. It was called We Visit. It was an elderly visiting service. Slightly weird for two young guys to start an elderly visiting service. But we largely worked for guilty children who lived overseas, and they would pay us, and we would pay someone, a student, to go and look after Nana for a couple of hours.
Okay.
And chat and hang out. And actually, it worked really well, and it was a cool project. And I say guilty children tongue in cheek. I mean, it's people who couldn't come back. It actually probably work better now, given COVID. I should do it again.
Yeah.
Anyway, though, the business model didn't really work. It was more charitable than business. And when people come and tell me, "Oh, I want to do this good thing for the community," I'm just like, well, how are you going to make any money from it, and how is it going to sustain itself at work? There is not enough money in the community sector in New Zealand for the number of charities that there are. So you've got to be really disciplined about it and have a much more social and entrepreneurial model behind it, I think. And that, I've got to tell myself that and work hard on selling our product to when it's and it is hard.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are the critical elements of doing this startup then, of making this? I mean, you've just touched on one there, which is, funding. What else has been critical in growing SVA?
So I'm a big believer in a concept around critical friends. So a critical friend for me is someone who gives you friendly, robust advice. One of the most interesting roles that I've had for a few years is being a critical friend of Westpac Bank. So I'm on Westpac's sustainability panel, set up by David McLean, the chief executive, who's actually just leaving. And there's this group of us, there's 6 of us, and we get to basically lob really difficult, big questions to the exec team and the board of Westpac and push them on what more they should be doing on particular topics. So I'm a believer that we all need our critical friends, and we need a couple, not too many. And those people will drive you in an interesting direction. So I really love the concept, and David from Westpac coined it around critical friends, and I just think that's a critical one, because I find getting
surrounded by yes people, then no one's ever going to give you that reality check that that you really need.
Yeah, that's right. And so,
I'm sorry, Tracy has just made a comment here. She said you should totally start up the We Visit again on a volunteer basis. There are plenty of people that have a couple of hours available each week to visit elderly who don't have family. I've now contacted Age Concern 3 times about this and no response. Yeah,
well, Age Concern have their accredited visitor service, but they have more volunteers than people needing the service. And would love sign up with us, Tracy. You don't have to be a student. Just when you sign up, just put a random 4-digit number in the student box. If it doesn't let you, it should let you pass anyway. And then just join SVA General as your institution instead of a school or university, or just join the Canterbury University one if you're in Christchurch, or Auckland one if you're in Auckland. We're not too precious about it, and if you're a student or not. But there's an interesting project coming up around supporting older people while they get their vaccine. So we're quite excited about that.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so after you've had the vaccine, of any vaccine, you've got to sit and be not go anywhere for 20 minutes. When they're delivering the vaccines in rest homes, if the person's in their room, the vaccine people need to move on to the next room, and so our volunteers are helping just chat to the older person while they're there, and some admin-y jobs.
Right, nice.
Yeah.
So I mean, I know that SVA is a charitable organisation, but it is still a startup. I mean, it still requires all of the same qualities and attributes. Like, what do you think is the most critical ingredient when you're starting something, a new organisation from scratch? Like, what's the most important thing?
I'd probably go to team and business model. Team, someone who thinks differently from you. And I always like to think back to Ernesto Saroli, who visited Christchurch after the earthquakes. There was a TEDx speaker. He said, you've got to have someone with the idea, someone who has someone with an idea in the product, someone who can manage the money, and someone who can sell. And no 2 people can do all 3 of those things. Or no 1 person can do all 3. So you need someone who can with the idea and the product, someone who can sell and someone who can do the money in the business model. And you might find two people who can cover three bases, but you'll never find one person to cover all three.
Yeah.
And I think that's true in SVA. It's true in it was true in We Visit in our company. It was true in the company it merged with. So I'm a big believer in that. And then,
which of those three do you cover, do you think?
Product and sales.
Yeah. Not the money.
Not the money, but I've probably got a lot more. I've got a lot more focused on the money as time has gone on. And if anything, I'm more focused on the sales and the money now, just because that's what my job requires of me. So
that's your role within SVA now. Like, it's really, the evangelist primarily.
I mean, evangelist, a little bit evangelist, a little bit fundraiser. We have quite a dispersed team. We've got a really talented team who work on different parts pretty remotely, actually. And Penny, our operations manager, runs a lot of the day-to-day things. So my technical job's chief executive. I think it's more glorified administrator. We focus on the health and safety, on the technology and the fundraising, and keeping the thing growing and building. And we have about 64,000 kids now and students involved each year across SVA, at primary school, secondary school, and tertiary. And we just got to.
Are you really proud? Like, say that.
It does. It more makes me nervous. How do we keep it up?
Right.
I think, but it does make me proud. Yesterday, the Premier of Tasmania announced in his speech for Australian Volunteer Week that they would like to start a youth volunteer army based on student volunteer army. Right. So that was news to me, but we have sent them a big proposal, so that was quite exciting. So it is kind of growing, and we're just sort of focused on that model.
Yes, that's exciting. It
is exciting. It's great, and I think there's a lot of opportunity in that space, and now we've just got to make sure we're delivering on it.
Yeah.
I mean, my view on it, execution is everything, and I think.
So that kind of does lend into that question of what is the growth strategy for SVA broadly? World dominance. World domination.
No, not particularly. I'm not. Probably if you'd asked me 3 years ago, I would have said yes, but now I'm more relaxed.
Growing up since then.
Well, I had a really bad head injury, so it changed my life a bit, which I can talk about later. But I think just more focused on growth strategy is around Polytechs, growing our school program and increasing the number of people who use the SVA app, and developing it.
So tell it. Do you mind talking about your head injury? Like, what happened?
No, sure. I took a hedge trimmer into the forehead, hit me there and there, exactly 2 years ago, April 13th, and caused me a blinding concussion. I was totally incapacitated for 6 months and have had a concussion ever since. That I still. It was a hedge trimmer, James. To your question, it was an extension pole pruner. And
was you operating it, or was it someone else?
Yeah, I was operating it. Yeah, okay. And now my mission,
it wasn't a failed assassination attempt or anything.
just get a man in, get someone in, get a woman in, just get someone in to do the trees at home. Don't do it yourself. Life is too short.
Okay, that must be about the 4th tip today.
And I'm going to write my book one day. I'm going to write a book one day. I probably never will, but if I do, it's going to be called "Don't Hit Yourself on the Head with a Hedge Trimmer."
James is saying, Sam's tip: avoid manual labour at all costs.
Well, it's a key ingredient of student volunteer army, and the leadership team is don't do the volunteering yourself.
Yes.
You have to. We tell our club leaders, you have to create the volunteer projects and then help get other people to do them with you. But if you do it all yourself, it never grows, and you don't give other people the opportunity.
That applies to so many different things. Like we in our own team here, you see the guys sort of chomping at the bit. They know it's faster to do it themselves, but it takes longer to show someone else. But keep trying to say the more you show someone else, the stronger our team becomes. You know, if you keep all that knowledge to yourself, then our team will always be weaker.
Yeah. No,
So,
and if you
how did the head injury kind of change your, you know, your approach to what you're doing?
I physically couldn't do just about anything. I couldn't use my phone because I couldn't see it. That's why I've got the glasses now. I couldn't use my computer. And I literally would wake up in the morning, I'd have a shower, and then I'd have to go and lie down again for an hour. And then I'd do something, and then I'd have to lie down for an hour. I had a year of going to bed at 8:15 at night time and waking up at 7 in the morning. I just slept a lot. I was very unwell. It was a pretty horrific head injury. And it took a long time to recover, but 3 days before the head injury, I'd just taken on 3 more staff and a government contract running a new program at work. And the wheels did fall off. I mean, we were not resilient. We were barely a resilient enough organisation to survive.
Are you talking about SVA, or is this pre-SVA?
No, this is SVA. This is the foundation. We were focused on this return to work program, and it was rough. Some of my team at the time sent me home. They said, you cannot. You are so unwell. And
Sam, I grew up on a farm too, and it sort of seems to be part of New Zealand culture, but especially in that agricultural sector, that you can do everything yourself. You know, you can build your own fences, drive your own trucks, you can do everything yourself. And yet to make any business of any scale, you've got to step back from that and make those things happen. Has that been a challenge for you to get your head around that, or?
I think if the head injuries helped me do that because I simply had to. I mean, it's just
right. So you kind of recommend a head injury, perhaps?
recommend just not trying to do everything.
Yeah, totally.
It's too easy to do it, and we all do it. We go, oh no, I'll do that, and we physically can't. I mean, I like to think of it. There's 2 sayings I like. One is be criminally viciously selfish with your time, so only work on things. 2 is you have your 3 things you're going to achieve each day, and did you do them? And the third one that I forgot, and that's also joy of head injury. I just forget.
What did you say? Just have three things that you want to achieve in a day.
Yep. That focus on what are your 3 things you're going to do today? 3 things that actually move the dial. And I think if I think back to COVID last year, and we were a team of 3, I was like, oh Christ, sorry for blasphemy. What are we going to do around the COVID? We're a disaster response kind of organisation. We need to do something. I looked on the government website about what we're allowed to do, and so you were allowed to be a food delivery service. So we quickly updated our website to become a food delivery service. And then I asked Countdown, can we do a food delivery service with you? They said no. Then I just hassled Foodstuffs South Island, who had no delivery capacity whatsoever. And they said, sure, just don't annoy us too much, basically. And they were a great partner. They sent us their shopping list. We built a little shopping service. We partnered with a whole lot of really clever people through an Instagram group. And we scaled from having 3 people in our team to having 96 people. We recruited 3,000 volunteers and delivered groceries out of 55 New Worlds around the country to about 2,500 people. And the best advice I got through that was from an incredible New Zealand startup guru, Sam Hulse, who said every morning, I did a call with him at 7 a.m. in the morning and 7 at night. And it just said, what are your prios? The 3 things. You need to do your 3 big things each day. And so in my job at that time, it was, okay, let's get the North Island on board, or let's get the whole of New World on board, like 3 big, chunky, meaty things that actually matter, so you don't just get lost in the minutiae of filling the days.
Yes.
So was he acting as a coach for you or something?
Yeah. Sam was, so he came out of a company called Addyend in the States, which is a $20 billion payments company. And we used Addyend as our payments service. And Sam basically came and essentially was co-CEO with me for that time and coached me a lot in our team and helped develop our shopping
New Zealand,
service.
or is he American?
He's a New Zealander. He's a Kiwi guy who lives in Auckland, and but just having super smart people help like that, just was exceptional. To push actually, and it was about execution. He was an executor, just get it done. and why is it taking so long? Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, just so pivotal having people on your team like that, isn't it?
And
There's a
that
vulnerability
focus.
though around accepting the help, and I think we're all a bit nervous of this, and it's easy. It is a vulnerable thing to accept help.
Exactly. You feel like it's not just about whether you don't want to ask for help or whatever, but it's also that whole thing of feeling like you might be judged by the person that comes to help you. You go to someone who is a or whatever, and and perhaps you're scared of kind of showing your wares, because it might not come up to scratch.
No, totally.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about growth. So biggest challenges: money, funding, sales.
Oh, sorry, Juliet. Cut out a second. Say it again.
So the biggest challenges for SVA and yourself within SVA at the moment around funding and how you.
I think our biggest challenge is making sure. So we've just built this new app with the team at Custom D. We've just rolled it out to the 230 schools, 6 universities. Hopefully we'll have 10 universities and polytechs next year. Our biggest challenge is making sure people are using it and that it is actually responsive to what they need. So are the students using the functionality how we expected it to be used? Are they clicking on the right things that we wanted them to click on, and what's that journey? And I think, are they, at the end of the year, are they downloading their summary of service, and are they using that to go and get a job? And that's at secondary school, that's the big thing. And the universities now are really interested in that too, and using that functionality. So it's really amazing what's been created, and I think it's just brilliant. And it's just making sure we're going to be using it in the right way, and that it's useful for the students, and they understand it.
So will you be doing surveys? Like, will you go out to the students that, obviously you can analyze the data that you're gathering through the app, but will you actually go out and practically survey?
Yeah, I think we're going to do a series of focus groups on it, and include with students and teachers. And the teachers' feedback recently has just been, we need better marketing materials. So we've just got a video that's coming to actually promote how it works in secondary school. Then we'll grow it in tertiary. And I mean, our big focus is from some of our funders is how we have more young Māori and Pacifica young people on the program, and so we're adjusting our marketing materials so that there's more young Māori people particularly can see themselves in the program, and that's some feedback we got. Same from some young Pacifica people, but it's hugely popular with international students too. So
yeah.
That's probably then the second challenge is around the just getting the right business model and then selling. Let's just get it out there. We've got great infrastructure. Let's get it into universities. Let's get it going. So
yeah.
So your strategy around where the tech goes from here is largely driven by those focus groups and feedback that you're getting, not just kind of adding features for the heck of it.
Pretty much, yeah. That's so when the students request things or they say we do it.
Are you the sort of the product owner yourself? Are you the conduit for that, or do you delegate that?
Penny does a lot of our work on it, and I talk to students and teachers quite a lot too. So right,
so you're out there at the coalface hearing it and.
Yeah, I think it's important. I always ask students, have you heard of it? Have you used it? What do you think of it? Where it's going.
That's great.
And just gotta be careful what I say, because I can see Snare there listening. So I've got he'll hold me to anything I say.
Yeah. I think it takes a discipline around where you go with it, and I think that building a sort of an MVP, not trying to build everything in one go, and then looking for feedback and looking for direction from the users and what they're actually using, what they actually need, is fantastic. Yeah.
There's often a trap that startups fall into from our experience, and that is feeling like they've only got one shot at this and they have to have everything on day one because they're never going to get another chance to put their product in front of their target audience. But it seems to be really that is it's very rare that that's actually the case. You know, it's actually more important that you deliver whatever is there well. Obviously there's a certain amount of features and functionality that have to be there, but it doesn't have to be everything, and you will get more attempts, you know, to convert people.
Feel into it. Well, that's good advice. Thank you.
So working on SVA, that makes you happy?
It does. It makes me happy. It's interesting. I mean, we're all just doing something to fill the days, aren't we? It's just I like it. I mean, it's a fascinating kind of set of problems, and there's good days and bad days. I think.
So how do you get through the bad days? Like what happened? You know, tell us about that. Like, how do you overcome those, you know, feelings of despair sometimes that pretty much everybody has?
For me, it's exercise and eating properly. If I do not exercise regularly and eat properly, I'm just an absolute wreck. So they're my two. I'm not a good version of myself. I remember when we started Ministry of Awesome in Christchurch years ago with a few others, Kyla and Sasha and Vicky, Buck. We used to have nicknames for ourselves there was Sam and Shmam, and then Kyla and Schmeiler and Vicky and Schmicky and Sasha and Shasha, and it was that those names were for like the bad version of our personality, which we all have. Like I was a bad version of my personality today. I'm actually in Auckland for the day, and I was biking into the office where I work from when I'm up here, and I was a really angry, one of those angry cyclists. Like I bashed someone's car window for being in the road.
You did this today?
I did that this morning. I was like really wound up. It was a bad morning. And just, you know, a bit of stress relief and maybe a little bit of head injury. I used to be quite passive, and now I'm just anger's not a bad thing. I just like let it out. It's just like because I nearly got hit off my bike, so I was really upset and angry about it.
Yeah.
So, but good exercise.
There's a correlation between head injuries and that kind of short fuse, isn't there? There is actually a strong link there scientifically.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, I mean, you definitely notice mood changes. If I'm tired or grumpy, head injuries definitely change that. It's I can remember when a year after my head injury, I was walking across the road on the phone, and somebody tooted at me, and my instant reaction was like to yell at them, and I just thought, this is not me. I yelled at them and pulled the fingers, and I was just like, what the hell? Like it's a whole different person. It's because your brain just fills up, and you literally can't cope with anything else. That sometimes you just have to. If I don't meditate, I for 2 years I meditated every day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for up to an hour, and if I didn't do it, I couldn't function in the evenings.
Do you still meditate?
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's use the Headspace app. I only do the 15-minute one, but it's.
I've just started using that actually. Yeah, they're good, aren't they? I like it.
It's really cool.
At what part of the day do you do it, Sam?
Normally 3 o'clock.
Right, mid afternoon.
Yeah.
Is that when you sort of batteries run low the most?
Yeah, just if I've been on my screen all day. Yeah, I'm much better now than I was. Like I was pretty. I got better from the head injury last year, right before COVID, and then just slammed myself through the COVID lockdown, and then got really sick again, and then got better again by February this year.
Right.
Yeah.
So what now? Like what comes? Like I mean, obviously you've still got a lot that you want to achieve with SVA, but what do you see in terms of your life after SVA? Or is there no life after SVA? SVA for life?
I hope there's life after SVA. I think I never really call myself the founder of SVA anymore, because I like the saying that once something's been found, it is found. Like it is there. SVA is a thing. It doesn't need a founder. Sure, that's a useful title occasionally, but I'm kind of more doing a role now, doing a job. Like I am the chief executive employed as that job, so we're trying to move it into that space. So yeah, I will eventually move on sometime. Might be soon, might be years away. I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I do have a few board positions and governance positions, and I really enjoy those. And yeah, we'll see where it goes.
So you don't sort of like, if I said 10 years from now, you don't have ideas of what you'll be doing? It's just where the wind takes you?
I'd like a little bit more strategic than that, but we'll see where it goes. So
Yeah.
I've narrowly avoided politics for now, so
Yeah.
probably going to stay that way.
Good move.
Do you think that will be in your future?
I don't know. I don't think so at this stage. I'm quite happy.
Yeah, good.
I'd quite like to do another company. Yeah, kind of. I've done SVA is kind of my do-goody thing, and I'm interested in what else we can do.
Yeah.
Interested in using my lessons.
You have to have a pretty thick skin to get into politics.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
everybody's your critic. You know, everyone's your critic.
Well, I get really annoyed though about the way that we're paying people to do everything, and the whole community volunteer sector is just completely lost in New Zealand at the moment. And I think you fast forward 20 years, it's a dangerous trajectory that we're on. So I'm quite thoughtful about that at the moment. I don't think politics is the right vehicle to change that, but it is just something that I think about a lot. Back to the Plunkett example, or.
So what do you think fundamentally needs to change? Like what could we be doing differently?
Well, the default can't be paying people to do something. So yeah, we need to plant a whole lot of trees for carbon and climate change at the moment. So the default is, how do we mobilize the largest number of people to go and do that, not let's pay people to go and plant trees all the time. I just philosophically struggle with that. Sure, you've got to pay some people to do it, but actually a lot of us would be happy to do something occasionally, but we're really bad at organizing people to do that. So it's many to many models, not one to one, or not few to few. So like we're all happy to do things occasionally, but the systems that organize people to do things occasionally are really poor. So that's kind of what I'm interested in.
We've got a question here from Karan Sethi. Hope I pronounced that name right. Sam, how do you partner with organisations who might need volunteers? Do you have a criteria for the organisation, community, who you will help? Thanks.
Yeah, we actually don't have a criteria right now, so it's a bit of a lottery, which is a critique of our own system. So sure, if you have some projects, just fire them over and we'll have a look. It's often about what a volunteer wants to do, so we've got to make the project interesting. And it's got to be at a good time. Like, students don't volunteer over exams.
Yeah.
Some of our partners, they always try and get people to do a project in exam time. We say they won't turn up. We will put it out, but you'll get no one.
Yeah.
So yeah, no earthquakes or floods or anything at exam time, thanks.
Basically,
or
we can't help unless it's big enough to motivate them to do that instead of their exam.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and that was the September earthquake. That was my own personal. I had an essay due. I didn't want to write it, so we did a volunteering project instead.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, sort of at the end of our time now, but yeah, been a really, really interesting conversation, and for someone who's really had such great experience and lots of good advice in there for us all. So thank you for what you do. Actually, thank you for making volunteering such a great passion in your life. It's we're all better off for it, I think.
Cool, thanks Julie, and thanks Craig. I love working with you guys. I think the Custom D team are great. It's been awesome working with Snare and Tim and Sam and Dave and others. Now I'm seeing that, and Cindy, and the other team.
Oh, you will have just made Cindy's day.
It's fun. So good projects with good people is my filter in life.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
okay,
thanks, Sam.
The next time I'll see you, Sam, both Craig and I will see you next Friday for the NZ High Tech Awards.
NZ High Tech Awards, of which we are collective finalists for Tech for Good.
Yes.
They're exciting. I saw our competition the other day at a function, not the government one, but the other guys, the Maria English and the Impact people. And I said to them, I just hope you or I win, not the government's Tracer app.
Excellent.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Sam, and I'll see you next Friday.
You guys, thanks,
Sam. See ya.